I think it's also important that we explore the options. Aside the issue of how it was raised, he also talked about whether or not it was going to make things cheaper. It's very important because even though you've made the point that whatever the price of cassava is going to stay here, we're going to save our foreign exchange earnings. But the man who's going to be buying bread at an increased price, assuming it's not produced cheaper, assuming introducing cassava doesn't make it cheaper, it's going to be hard to explain to him. He might be saying, please, let us spend the foreign exchange earnings and bring in the wheat so I can buy my bread cheaper.
Well, these are all conjectural because we don't know how much it will cost to produce the cassava bread. But I know that, like I said before, the master bakers were contemplating increasing the prices of their bread at one time. So I'm not sure, but this is not a scientific statement per se. I mean, the sense that I have not done the cost-benefit analysis of what the cassava wheat thing would be. But like I've said, at the end of the day, I believe the economy will benefit more from it. And the common man who wants to eat the bread will still benefit more from it. Because there are so many other things. Like if we have this, that's why I said there's a lot of linkage in this. We are talking of fuel subsidy, we are talking of depreciation of the naira and all that. So the man who wants to eat more bread, he will probably save more money from the subsidy, from the fuel subsidy not being removed, so he won't have to pay more for his for his transportation.
It is believed that there's some money with the industrial bank that's supposed to help those that are producing cassava.
Well, yes, I understand that.
The processes of accessing that money, what are the processes, and how many people do you think have accessed that money?
We've always had this issue of ability to access all these intervention funds. I think it's the banks that put the impediments on the way. But I am aware that, for instance, the intervention funds for the small-scale industries, yes, the banks, maybe this is an opportunity for our CBN governor to now talk to the banks to ensure that they do what is right. Because my own son was able to access this, but the bank through whom the money was disbursed almost frustrated him because he had his plans before he made this application, but they became like headmaster. They wanted to see every kobo that he wanted to spend. I mean, you got to understand that he wanted to repair his generator, and they wanted to see the bill for the repair. So these are bottlenecks that we will have to really look into. But that does not mean that we should just throw away the whole idea.
So there are ways through which we can actually improve. What bottlenecks do you perceive in this?
So the thing is that some of these, I'm really sorry to say this, but some of these people in this industry, in the banking industry, really don't know their left from their right. They just are there, they are asked to do this and they do it. Because if somebody is borrowing money to do a business, he already had his business plan and all that. And the people who approved the loan to him already went through this plan. And there are time frames to all these things. So if you now become a cog in the wheel, and the man is not able to access the money at the time he needs to, you are almost going to kill that.
So you think that you support the CBN's plan of introducing agricultural debts, because that's one area that you need to be able to understand what farming seasons are like, what a farmer might most likely go through, and you actually support that plan.
Oh, sure. I mean, incidentally, we've always had this intervention thing from a long time ago. We used to have preferential interest rates for farmers and for housing. When the interest was at about 14, I think it was about 7 for farmers then. But the the problem was that it was office farmers who access the money. They're not the real people who need. But I think the CBN is trying to address that. And we have issues whereby farmers are asked to form cooperatives and all that. So it's easy. I mean, it's easy to now disburse it through the apex body that they have. So definitely, whatever is done. I mean, I was talking on an interview some time back. Whatever is done to improve our agricultural sector is welcome.
Can I ask you a question? You said whatever is done to improve agriculture. You're possibly used to fluffy, soft white bread, or maybe wheat bread, as it were. What happens if your bread suddenly becomes harder? Will you still buy?
It's not as if we are going to put the cassava inside the thing and cover it up with. It's going to be cassava powder. The same thing we use for amala and all that.
The reason that question is important is this particular product is something that is dependent on the happiness of the consumers.
Oh, sure.
The willingness of consumers to buy. Yeah. And one of the baker, our last guest, told us that one of the reasons why it failed last time was because the bread was too hard, and it seemed they had not improved on the flour. And it's wondering if they have. I'm just asking.
No, I want to believe that, like we said,
yes,
that time was a while back.
Yes.
And it was 10% flour, they said then. Now, for them to now be talking about 40%, it means more research has been done on this. So let us give, the human being is always selfish. So the bakers are looking at it from their own perspective only. Whereas we should be looking at it from the perspective of all of us.
Well, anyway, someone here just tweeted to let us in on all of that fact about the cassava flour, which truly is a worrisome development, if that is the truth, about the cost of that particular flour is more expensive than wheat. And if it's more expensive, that means whoever is sent this is an expert. If it's more expensive, and that means we're likely to see an increase in the prices of bread. We're likely to see people disregard the homemade bread.
I do hope it won't get to that. Like I've said, I don't have the figures. I haven't done anything about that.
And you haven't eaten cassava and wheat bread before.
I'm not sure
you wouldn't know if it's softer or harder.
I'm not sure I've eaten cassava bread before, but I want to believe that the people who are pushing this know that there is a standard taste that you want from your bread. So I'm sure that something will be done about this issue of the fluffiness and all that. It is the human being is always resistant to change, and you cannot make any progress without change. So it's a positive change, and I want these bakers to go and look at how they can also do something. Let them work together. Maybe the consultation has not been enough, but now that the thing has come on, it has become a public issue, let them go and sit down together and see how all of us will benefit from this.
Well, how come? Maybe you, as a management consultant, you should let us in on this. How come sometimes some policies are not even well cooked or done enough before you serve them? For instance, when we heard about the national driver's license and the new number plate, and it was with immediate effect to start on that day we saw the announcement, and till just recently before people started getting it. Now we're talking about the bread. And even the baker is saying that he hasn't even seen the cassava flour.
Now, that's one of the tragic outcome of our being ruled by the military. All of us have become used to military with immediate effect. Everything we do now is with immediate effect. And that's part of the aftermath of this long military rule. We've become so used to somebody just coming and saying, okay, this is what we have to do, and then everybody starts running all over the place. Look at some of the issues we have today as a result of all this military. Look at this consolidation thing, the consolidation of the banks, which the banks were compelled to do within 18 months. We are still suffering from the effect of that today. Because consolidation and mergers and whatever, it's like a marriage. You need to have courtship, you understand each other and all that. But suddenly banks were asked to consolidate within 18 months, and some of them up to today still don't know what the other person brought into the merger. And so that's part of the issues we still are contending with. Yes, we need to get away from this military mentality thing. I've always been very, very bothered, especially with because this is my area, with our financial area. The CBN comes one day and says, look at the microfinance sector of the banking sector. The CBN is now talking of cashless society. And you need the people to have banking culture. The microfinance banks are the banks closest to the grassroots. Meanwhile, these banks are being killed because of policies that are inimical to their growth. And we seem to look at each point of view as an island, rather than see the linkage between all the things that we are doing. I mean, and it's one of the tragedies of this nation, that the CBN governor comes in with his own idea of what he wants to do. It doesn't matter what the person who was there was doing. We had a CBN governor who was a development economist who assured that no microfinance bank would be allowed to go under. Then somebody who succeeded him brought a club to kill the sector, and we need it.